All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Tiger My League Report. Recap for week number is it week 7 technically? This is where I'm getting confused at Brandon. So I went with the first week of the season.
Yeah, I think so. No, that sounds right. Maybe we just started week 8. Yeah. So I think we're good.
Okay,
Week recap of week 7.
there we go. Okay, so as just now the Tigers blasted the Red Sox 14-2. There's no other way to say it. There was a there it is. Yeah, there it is.
It's victory.
The victory. That is the everybody was kind of losing their mind over losing the series in Texas a little bit. But this is why it's a long season. The Tigers were 162 game season, folks. And they got it done tonight with just jumping with a big third inning, 9 runs in the third inning. And Jackson Jobe is probably his best start of his professional career. 15 swings and misses. The 5 walks decided maybe he got squeezed a little bit. I'm not going to nitpick a 14-2 win here. So if there's one nitpick, the 5 walks, okay, sure.
Jackson Jobe was nitpicking it though. He was pissed, and I love it.
Yeah, he was angry.
He was furious. Like Feder had to kind of get right in his face in the dugout to get his attention because he was fuming. So that's a good sign. He's just a kid. He's got less experience at this point than JV or Max or any of those dudes did. There's plenty of time, but it was really nice to see him use the curveball, bust that thing out and get a bunch of whiffs with it. It all looked pretty good. We know the changeup is good, and he hasn't really leaned on it this year. And he kind of did a little bit more tonight. Obviously, they've got a bunch of lefties over there. So, all in around, pretty good performance. But I don't know, that strike zone was very suggestible, let's say.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And yes, Charles, it was myself and Chris at the event on Saturday representing the Detroit chapter of the Baseball Writers Association. So Chris looked like a proud father, and I'm gonna pull up the picture here because it's a good picture. You know what? It's a good picture. Tigers PR. Thank you to Tigers PR for that.
Everybody but Cody, who couldn't be bothered.
I was stoked to see that though. Yeah, that was cool. I was like, oh look, I was doing the Leonardo DiCaprio meme basically.
Yeah. I still don't, I mean, I think that's the National Baseball Writers Association of America, like Pitcher of the Year award for Scooble, I think.
Yeah.
And then the Detroit chapter, hands it to him because it's but I mean, it's kind of like another Cy Young, except the players don't care.
Tarek's like, all right, do I have to take another picture? All right, fine.
Yeah.
No, he was no tuxedo, no speech. Okay, I'm in.
He was very nice. I shook all our hands, made a point of shaking everybody's hands, saying thank you, and stood there and took a bunch of pictures with a bunch of nobody. Although Tom Gage is a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, that's true. Tom Gage is a big time. Yep.
Yeah. And it was funny because Don, who's to the left of me, didn't know what to do. And then somebody said that Chris McCoskey looked like he was staring at a hot dog angrily or something to that effect.
That somebody had put ketchup on a hot dog.
Yeah. But yes, we were on television, and so it was cool. Like I said, look, I'm not going to lie. I did the same move pointing at the screen. I'm not going to sit there and pretend that this wasn't cool. I mean, to me, it's kind of like I know it sounds cheesy, but it's kind of a pinch me. I can't believe I'm actually here moment. So on a field shaking a man's hand who literally mammoth, his hand was, imagine, I'm trying to think of a way to, his hand just was massive. It just engulfed my hand when he shook my hand. I'm like, I can't feel my hand. It was just, he has massive hands.
I would have wrapped my legs around one of his legs just to judge his circumference and been dragged away.
Yeah, I mean, he and Max Clark have this giant legs. I have small hands. I didn't feel particularly engulfed by Scooble, but he wasn't I'm sure had he wanted to give me a firm handshake, he would just broken him. But also I don't know if he's actually right-handed in life and just pitches left-handed or because he shook our hands right-handed.
I think that's true. I think he writes right-handed. Yeah.
So in any event, I mean, it was nice and it was cool to get on their field, and I'm sure everybody in the stands was like, "What the hell are these people doing here?"
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely a very cool moment. Anytime we get to go down there, it's like Raj said, it is kind of like, what? How did this happen?
Yeah.
But Talking Head song. How did we get here?
Hard work is the answer.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's I don't know, it's nice to Colt Keith got his award. We were just as he's walking off, we were like, well, all right, nice award. He's like, yeah, okay. And then they went out and played 2 of the worst games they played all year. But boy, a game like tonight will wash the taste of that out of your mouth.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just embarrassing the Red Sox.
For
And
sure.
watching the Red Sox embarrass themselves.
Yeah, and they did embarrass themselves too.
Colin says he's pretty sure it's state law to shake your hand with the right hand because for a while, if you were left-handed, you're considered the devil's advocate. So I mean, there was a one point.
Well, if you offer someone your left hand, what are they supposed to do if they're, it just doesn't work.
I didn't even think about the logistics of it because
then we end up in some kind of weird, like you're meeting the queen kind of handshake or something, and everybody feels really ick about that.
Yeah.
No, but Joe pitched very well, and the offense picked up where they again something to consider too. The Tigers played in 3 different time zones, and traveling is a bitch. I'm sorry if anybody who's extensively traveled, it takes for me. I'm not a well-conditioned athlete, but if you travel to the West Coast, and you're out there for 4 or 5 days and you adjust back, there's always an adjustment. And the fact that maybe the Tigers came out flat is because was it 10 days they hit 3 different time zones?
Yeah. I mean, it's whatever, but we had the same thing going on yesterday where people were like, was the schedule easy? It's all crumbling, 2 losses. It's like, look, they played mostly tough teams so far. We got the Rockies and the White Sox and we beat the snot out of them. But other than that, it's been average or better teams, maybe not Angels. But they got their 2 tough West Coast swings out of the way, right in the first quarter of the season. And take a look at the record. So I'd say things are looking pretty good. Everybody can relax.
Yeah,
we're just looking for something to be worried about, because we're just not comfortable in this situation. Is I think what it is.
And they looked a little lifeless in those games. I think the adrenaline of the Scooble start and him just being absolutely bonkers on Friday night carried them. Right, they scratched across a couple runs. Didn't do much of anything else on the offense. The Rangers have a very talented team. Their record isn't great right now, but that's still mostly the exact same team that won the World Series 2 years ago.
Yeah.
DeGrom is kind of good. Evaldi always pitches tough against the Tigers. So, it happens. You lose games at some point during the season. But like I said, the encouraging thing is they came out today and it was right away. Just bam, 2 batters in, they're up 2-0. And that's all they needed, I guess. Boston did score a run there in the 12th or the 9th. Not the 12th, but a nice bounce back victory for sure.
Yeah. They did it for the Pythag, and I appreciate their concern for the reinvector.
But meanwhile,
you want that run differential, dang it.
Cleveland and Kansas City are still just bathing in that devil magic.
Yep. Just getting it done without, just by 1 run here, 1 run there. So. Yeah, that's all right. The Central reigns again. It would be nice to see them kind of fall back to where they sort of deserve to be. But it's a long season, so we'll just keep handling your business, Tigers. That's all you can do.
Yeah, we pound out 18 hits tonight. 18 hits, and Javi Baez with another 3-hit game. That's his just his 4th, 3rd hit game. And he only
Sweeney
had
too.
Yeah, Sweeney. Yeah. Look, here's the thing about Sweeney. Let's talk about Trey for a moment. Coming back from the road trip. Here's, again, I tweeted this out earlier. I think people often overlook this guy was a 1st-round draft pick. I mean, he was a 21st pick overall by the Yankees. And whether the Yankees wanted Fouts or not, I'm still kind of here's the thing. I know it's only May 12th, but if he continues at this pace, you really have to. We've talked about this before. Tip of the cap to the Tigers scouting department to find whatever it was, but even Dirks did a nice swing breakdown a little bit of him just staying on the ball a little bit, but he is now hitting better against off-speed pitches, which he struggled with last year. But it's not even. It's just like the quality of contact is really good. It's not like that single, or I think it was a single or double in the gap he had after his home run. I mean, the home run was an impressive shot. Don't get me wrong, but. It's just like, well, holy crap! Like the Yankees and Dodgers gave up on him already. After 4, what am I missing? Am I missing something here, or am I just the Yankees and Dodgers trying to be competitive?
With the worst center fielder that could have gone to the wall.
Yeah. No, I think part of it is the Yankees tend to give up on guys if they tend to sort of buy over guys, as it were, right? They'll get another 3rd baseman or shortstop or 2nd baseman even if they have a prospects, and so they trade him to the Dodgers.
I was gonna ask if you guys could make me out here. So I didn't think of it in the meantime. Yep. Blending right into the background here.
And the way it works sometimes is, you acquire somebody from some other team and you don't value him quite as much anymore. And you're like, yeah, sure, we'll give him up. We've barely had him. But yeah, he's always hit the ball very hard, and he's been a better defender than I think anybody expected. And he's tied for the second most games on the Tigers this year with 40.
Yeah,
him and Green,
a little bit.
He's been playing shortstop every day, just about. And he's got 0.8 WAR right now, which is probably third or fourth among all rookies. Like he's a dark horse rookie of the year candidate.
Yeah, but he's basically batting league average right now. Still playing above average defense. I mean, another good thing about it is, if the Dodgers traded for you at some point, that's a point in your favor as well. In my book, it's not like the Dodgers are stupid. The Dodgers aren't just gonna take a guy that they don't have any faith in. So, and they got a good pitcher. Jack Flaherty. We need to remember was arguably the third or fourth best pitcher in baseball at the time of that trade. So, the Tigers deserve to get something, and people wanted more. I would have liked to have seen them get an arm thrown in, and I think I said that at the time, but I wasn't unhappy with it. Tyron looked like a pretty good get, and I didn't know what to expect from Sweeney, but he seems to be putting it together pretty well. And we've seen this a lot, like Dingler the same way, like came up and wasn't really that impressive with the bat, and people had questions, and so far both of those guys have looked really, really good.
Oh, sorry, Samuel in the chat. I overcooked my steak tonight, like a goddamn loser. Rookie mistake. So the show's making me feel better, not emasculated. Well done steak is something that, growing up, I didn't know any better. So I didn't until I got older and became somewhat of a steak snob. But I don't even barely eat red meat anymore. But no, I do. I haven't had a good steak in a while though. The grill. We just brought out the grill last week, so I have to do a deep clean on it. But no, the thing, you're right, Brandon. If the Dodgers take notice of you, that's something to be considered. It was just one of the things that stood out to me last year was in the PCL, Oklahoma City, there's always, the numbers are always inflated numbers. And he didn't have really good numbers in the PCL. So on the surface, when you looked at that trade, when you first saw it, you're thinking to yourself, like anybody, the average fan would go, well, he's only hitting 240 odd something or something like that. And I forgot that batting average. And considering that you look at places like Albuquerque, Las Vegas, where guys are hitting like 300, it's kind of 240, really, if you really think about it, because based off the environment, there's the higher altitude of leaving Vegas, and then Albuquerque, same thing. Albuquerque is just ridiculous with some of the numbers. So, I think the Tigers deserve some more. Like the scouting on that trade was definitely 100%. Especially seeing him how he adjusts his hands tonight too.
Yeah,
good scouting trade.
And that we've talked about before too. But like that's why you have scouts. But also sometimes you just get lucky, right? That was their second deal. Yeah. They preferred the deal with the Yankees where they were getting Will Warren, or at least that was the one they wanted more. And Will Warren is pretty good pitcher, and obviously they probably saw a lot that they liked there, but it turned out getting an everyday shortstop a little bit more valuable to them right now. So, yeah, good scouting to have that as a backup, and good luck.
Yeah. And as someone pointed out to us here, Tyler Holton is gonna start tomorrow. So pitching chaos has returned. It only took Casey Mize going down, and that's a smart move with the Red Sox lineup. You get Holton in there, let him go as deep as he can against the lefties to start off, and then turn it over to Cater, and hopefully you get 4 or 5 innings, and the Tigers just beat the snot out of them again, and we'll see.
Yeah, and Montero will probably more likely piggyback off that too, he will be the 27th man to come up for tomorrow. So, I'm sorry, he's called up. Yeah, just called
a regular.
Up, yeah, just a regular call up there. So Montero will probably piggyback off Holton. And speaking of so being down there Saturday, Hinch announcing that he's going on the IL with a hamstring injury. The vibe that I got was that Hinch didn't seem too concerned about it, but as we know, last year when he did miss time with hamstring, was out for 3 months. So the injury apparently happened when I was in Colorado. So a little tightness and what have you. So
stay hydrated.
Yeah,
that's right.
In those higher altitudes.
So Gatorade, what have you. But either way, I'm not really. Hinch didn't seem concerned about it, but I wrote an article today just talking about some of the pitching depth that potentially down in Toledo with Enos has been pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
You have Wilkill Hernandez has been pitching really good too. The bullpen, it was just. I titled the title card for this reason is because, and we're going to mention this tonight, but the Tigers bullpen has the second best ERA in all of baseball. The Whitecaps have the best high A ERA of all high A affiliates, and Erie has the best bullpen out of all the double A affiliates.
Yep.
That they're like the pitching factory cooking machine thing is just churning it up a little bit.
Yep.
And so when I heard the Mize thing, at first I was thinking about this. I was like, man, that sucks because for his, having a really good year. But then I looked at those numbers a little closely and I was like, well, Enos in a pinch can start a couple of starts here and there if you need to. It depends on the 40-man flexibility. So Gibson Long just started his rehab. And then Jose
Urquidy
is going to probably start pitching in late June.
Oh, really? I hadn't heard that. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think that was on some injury list. I think it was updated for that. So
I thought that was a pretty slick move. Getting Urquidy. So we'll count our chickens when he arrives, and probably Sawyer Jim Long needs plenty of work to pitch his way back into actual game shape and stuff like that. But even for now, you've got Montero, you've got Wilkel. If they want to try ends, that's cool with me too. Or they can just go bullpen game and stuff like that too. What I kind of feel like though is that even tonight when you saw Hinch, pinch hit Malloy for Keith, like that just seems like kind of thing that he's doing because okay, well it's a tight spot with runners on base, and I'm just gonna like put you in this situation because I want to see it. To have the luxury to be able to kind of screw around like that and like just perform some minor experiments is kind of ridiculous, but AJ Hinch will do that. And, in Mize's case, like maybe it's a real injury. Maybe it's just like pretty minor. And they're like, hey, we'll take every opportunity to give guys, like a couple starts off early in the year, have them ready for late in the year. They are 100% managing for a 7-month season right now. And you can see that almost from the beginning of the year, which, kind of tells you how they feel about themselves and what they expect to do. So.
Yeah, what's interesting to me is that like, Colt Keith gets pulled in what, like the third inning, the fourth inning. It's super early. To me, that's almost like a sign of confidence in Keith, right? Like it wasn't like it's like we're good with you, we're fine. We want to get Malloy a chance here because this is a good spot for him. Like you'll be playing for us tomorrow for sure. It's kind of funny. Like it's not like we need to cash in right here. It was like let's give him a chance because we can. Yeah. So, a lot of I think you're right. There's a lot of kind of trial balloons, if you will, like just trying things out that they're going to need to do later. It does feel like the 4D chess is just it's going on all over the place, and even like you were talking about, like Roger was saying, all these good bullpens, and when you watch these other teams. And Lansing is a good example of this against West Michigan. They had some really good starting pitching. Gage Jump is probably the best starting pitcher in High A right now, or at least in the Midwest League.
Best one I've seen in the Midwest League so far.
And he went like 7-8 innings. Oakland doesn't seem to have any restrictions on their pitchers. But like these other teams, they'll have good starters, and then they'll bring in garbage from the bullpen. And I that's mean to say, right? But like these guys are just no good, and it feels like, at all the levels at the Tigers minor league system, they're like, they don't want guys who are kind of interesting in some way that can get outs. And it's not just about like, just playing catch with the good prospects. They actually care about these guys down to like, roster spot 140 in the organization, which is kind of wild.
Yeah, they'll cut you if you're the 141st guy and they see like some dude is on the wire or something that they can pick up. I mean, we've seen them kind of plumbing indie ball a little more over the past year with Lee and who else? Zach, the Lees, Zach Lee,
Matt Salinger.
Salinger,
yeah. So. And picking guys up who've been overseas like Ends and stuff. So I mean, that just kind of goes to what we keep talking about, which is that Scott Harris is up somewhere right now, like watching minor league baseball and obsessing over, who can we could use one more left-hander who's got a little bit, lower arm slot, and he's watching 10 games, all across the country, trying to find somebody he could just pick up. So they are thorough.
Yeah, I mean, they just picked up somebody from the Jays. Recently, they picked up a guy by the name of Ryan Boyer, who is a Pennsylvania native, University of Pittsburgh Bradford, which is I was talking to Jason Beck about it. It's a small college up there, and so his numbers in New Hampshire weren't exactly pretty, but they saw something with him, and they brought him aboard. And then Duque Hebert, they brought him up. I know he just it was just really seemed really random. He skipped over high A, but just filling that org role out pretty well. And he comes in and was like, guess what, guys? I'm gonna go ahead and toss. I'm gonna toss a scoreless inning in my debut, my Double A debut, even though it was 2 walks and 2 hits and 3 strikeouts, but still.
Yeah. And he might go right back down to West Michigan or even lower. There was kind of that. Yeah, there was that cycle day where Montero had to come up, and so it was bullpen day for the Mud Hens, and et cetera, et cetera. But it was still nice to see him come up and have a little success for sure.
Yeah. And the other thing too, I wanted to get to the Tigers this weekend too was the Gleyber Torres. I don't think we talked about him enough.
Yeah.
But he is just the amount of just professional at bats. Like we talked about this last year, where the Tigers needed a guy who could counts, walk a little more, and just Colin Fields skipped Erie. Okay, I did not know that.
Yeah, they sent Fields up to Toledo, and he got roughed up like 7 runs or something like that, and then sent him right back to West Michigan.
Yeah, but that was just the Montero move.
Yeah,
the Montero move. Okay, but no, Gleyber Torres has been he mentioned to us on Saturday. I was talking to the beat writers a little bit about giving Javi Baez a little bit of batting tips and everything like that. But I really think he has had more of an effect on Baez, but the entire clubhouse than any free agent signing the Tigers have had in a while. Just because he just, again, maybe I'm not seeing this, but are you guys seeing this error-minded, selfish brat the Yankees fans portrayed us to be?
I mean, there were some Gleyber, what are we doing here? Moments in spring training, but there haven't been many, if any, in the regular season. He's played a solid second base. He's not winning any Gold Gloves, right? But I'm not scared when the ball's hit to him.
Yeah.
And he's I don't know. He's been a consummate professional, and he's still only 27, 28.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There were who was it? It was Nick, right? It was they should just sign him to an extension, get him to play third base and sign him to that long-term deal. I don't know. I think the Tigers, that this front office thinks that they can do something like this every year.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe Gleyber has a good enough year that they give him the qualifying offer and they get a draft pick out of it.
Yeah.
We'll
we're like the place to go to rejuvenate your career a little bit. I know some smart Yankees fans who told me right away, all this crap you're going to hear about Gleyber Torres, we've always thought he was a good player, and that the Yankees, kind of just shat on him and moved him to places. They were playing him at shortstop when they needed to, and it wasn't really his cup of tea and stuff. And maybe he just needed to grow a beard. I don't know, but he seems like we talk about the glue guy, but especially between the Latin American players and the English native speaker English people, it just seems like he kind of works really well with both sides and is liked by both sides, and kind of you see him hanging out with a whole different bunch of people in the dugout. And so maybe that's good for Javi to kind of have someone else who speaks Spanish in the infield that he's a little more maybe naturally comfortable with, a little bit more older player who's played in the big markets, kind of knows what that's like. And then you also have the scrappy young, Red Tigers who are, all around him and, getting to know him and finally seeing, Javi Baez kind of play a little more they had hoped Javi Baez would play. I heard just anecdotally, a couple of years ago, Riley and Torque were a little bit we thought Javi would be better. This is just from someone who talked to them. So it didn't even mean anything, but I always wondered, are they a little bit oh, this is a drag. We signed this guy. He makes way more money than we are. We grew up watching him. We know he used to be good, but he's not that guy right now. So, Gleyber Torres in there just seems like he's been a perfect fit in just about every way. I'm just speculating about relationships on the team. I have no idea. But, at the plate, he's not striking out, walking a decent amount. He just seems to do everything that you need him to do situationally. If he needs to go to right field to get a run in, he does it. If you hang something, he's going to try to pull it in the air. He just, it's just a extremely professional approach at the plate. And, it's kind of been a nice anchor in the center. And he's been sort of the steady performer, whereas Riley's been up and down, Carp's been up and down, Keith sucked, and now Keith is hot. Torque has kind of cooled off. Gleyber's just kind of been right there. Like if the offense is clicking, Gleyber's in the middle of it, and night after night, he's kind of just putting out good at bat after good at bat.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, because it's just, to me, one of the things, if you look at where the Tigers are at second base right now, to the ability to put Keith at the DH or first base, it kind of gives them that position flexibility. And Charles, I will, Haili should be ready for second base. We'll have to talk about, when we get to Toledo, we'll talk about Haili, because there's just been the adjustments still not there as of yet. But we'll talk about it here in a second. But one last thing before we get to the Mud Hens and Erie and all that jazz, some good news on the injury front. Gleyber Torres will be starting his rehab assignment on Thursday. It's big news, considering that where you're going to put him. Madeline is going to be back, next week, I think?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Sometime in the next 10 to 14 days, I would think. Yeah,
He played outfield the first time the other day on Sunday, and then I think AJ said today they wanted to see him play back to back in the outfield and third base a couple days, like a couple back to backs. Oh yeah, I don't know, maybe end of next week or end of this week, early next week, something like that.
Yeah. So that's again, it's a good problem to have. Parker Meadows is still throwing. He still hasn't started his rehab assignment yet, so they're still testing it out. And Rogers started doing some running drills, but again, the one of the, I think, the underestimated signing here is Thomas Nido. The guy's, defensively he was good, but offensively we didn't expect this either. And they're just coming along with him as a backup too. And Dingler's just coming into his own. So
yeah, like with McKinstry and to a degree Javi a little bit too. I mean, it's ball luck for Nido, but the timing couldn't be any better. He's putting the bat on the ball and getting hits when they needed him to, and they don't need a whole lot from him. They probably won't need him for too much longer. But to have someone that AJ Hinch in particular and Chris Fetter 100% trust behind the plate is hugely valuable. And yeah, Nito's got tons of experience in the big cities and with top prospects and big names and stuff like that. So to be able to plug a guy like that in when Rogers goes down and not have to play Dingler overly much and worry about that has been another nice luxury, another little smart piece of roster building for Mr. Harris there.
Yeah, and I think it's tempting to be like, the Dingler is just kind of Wally Pipping Jake Roger, right? Like just the way he's performing and the way the pitching has largely performed with Dingler back there. Like, oh, he's going to be the primary catcher. But I think we've seen this many times where catchers, you're catching a lot. It takes an awful lot out of you.
Yeah.
So, it's great to have Dingler performing like this right now, but it's going to be great to get Jake Rogers back too. Like Nito's been great, but I think Jake Rogers and Dingler will probably be more of like a 50-50 split. And that'll keep both of those guys fresh. And hopefully it'll keep Dingler performing. And if something else happens, Nito, I think they're going to keep him on the 40 man. I don't know, I don't know if he has options or what they can do with him. I don't think he has options, does he? But
I don't think so. But maybe they can pay him.
Yeah,
somehow
yeah, something like that.
Assignment. I don't know how exactly what works behind closed doors sometimes with those situations. But,
because I mean, it's pretty invaluable to have another veteran catcher that you can lean on. I mean, who knows? Maybe they will have to let him go, and then it'll be Brian Servin who pops up and helps. So
yeah,
I don't know. They've done well to protect themselves in a lot of different areas.
Yeah, and I kind of think it should be like 3 games to 2 games, like Dingler over Rogers, unless Jake starts hitting. But we do know, like, come October, AJ Hinch is going to be probably more comfortable having Jake Rogers calling some of those games and running the show. Maybe that'll change over the course of the season. But yeah, I don't think Jake Rogers' time is done or he's been Wally pipped entirely. Although I did refer to the idea a little bit yesterday in my article. But Dingler's at the top of framing, blocking, arm strength, and he's hitting. And he is, he's getting a little bit of BABIP luck too. He's not necessarily, the most disciplined of hitters, but coming up, he was only really a fastball hitter. And so far he started to figure it out last year, to catch those hangers, to hit more breaking balls that he can get the bat on. And he's continued that year too. So he is kind of a free swinger, but when you've got a ton of pop and you're hitting, 27% line drives, you're going to put up a pretty high batting average. So, yeah.
That's going to help. Yeah, especially
it's not even warm out yet, you know. Maybe more dingers are coming. We don't know.
Yeah, especially the hit he had earlier in the left field gap there. It was a nice hit there. So, but yeah, I like Charles' theory that Jake will be Tarek's personal catcher. I could still see that
Yeah, I think so.
too.
But I mean, how can you do that after Dingler just caught the best game of Tarek Skubal's life the other day? No, I think you're probably right about that, honestly. And Jake is a great personality and leader in the clubhouse. I mean, Jake brings a ton to the table. I'm not down on Jake Rogers by any means. Always been a fan. So I just think he's 30 and the bat is So we'll just kind of see what they decide to do.
Mike, I like your idea of trading for a starting pitcher for the Marlins, because the Marlins are so cheap and such a crappy organization. At this point,
if you can poach them,
poach them all day, for them getting John Hicks, but
Alcantara, he's not pitching really well so far this year, but just get that guy over here and figure it out.
Yeah,
Fetter in the lab and the boys in the lab figure it out.
It's funny looking down there. It's like Dane Myers is down there, Derek Hill. Yeah. So if that's a team you want to poach, we talked about trying to get Halverson from the Rockies, during that series, because that was like the one dude on that whole team that you were like, I would love to have that dude, in particular. So
I wouldn't mind Bird either. I think Bird would be fine too. That would be a good acquisition. So let's look at the Mud Hens, who split the series with Iowa, and the Cubs were annoying. Good way to put it, Chris. They were annoying to the third degree because they would not go away. They had two home runs with 2 outs in the ninth, correct? Is that right, Chris?
3 times this week they scored. They tied the game with 2 outs in the ninth. They were down by 1 run 3 times and tied it all 3 different times. And I don't know if they won. I know they won the last time they did that. I'm not sure if they won the other 2, but yeah, just super annoying. Very frustrating for I'm sure for Gabe Alvarez and the rest of the Mud Hens, because they've kind of righted the ship. We've talked about it. They got to a brutal start and they've been playing really well, and they were very close to being 500, which didn't seem possible when they were like 6-15 or 6-16 or something like that. But Iowa just kept poking away at them and came away tying the series, which ordinarily that's fine. You go 3-3. That was progress for the Mud Hens a couple weeks ago. But
they did take the first 2. Yeah.
They left a little bit out there.
Yeah, and the one thing that came away from the series is that Carlos Mendoza continues to. Somebody asked me on Saturday about Mendoza. I think it was Evan Woodbury. I said, I don't. He just keeps doing what he's doing, and he's just continuing to hit. He's continuing to do the little things. It makes him think that he would be a utility at some point, or get a cup of coffee, if you will, at the big league level. It's the pitching for the Mud Hens that has made a difference. Their starting pitching has been better. Their bullpen has also been pretty solid, except the Jordan Balzovic news is disconcerting, Chris. I didn't realize he hadn't pitched since the 3rd, and he hasn't allowed a run. He didn't allow a single run in the month of April.
Yeah, he's not on the IL as far as I can tell, so I don't know what is going on there. Maybe just a little bit sore or something.
Colin's in the chat, who he went to go see. Colin did a really good interview with Matt Sellinger that we're going to be posting tomorrow, so maybe Colin may know something we don't know about that, what's going on. But yeah, the rest of the offense at Toledo's just Keelbaugh 3 for 21 for the week. Oof.
Yeah, give me Trey Cruz, give me Jake Holton. Let's go. It's about that time. I mean, Mendoza's just such a pesky player. He is a really, really fun player to watch on your side. I don't know what kind of a major league future he could have, but it's like he'll play in the major leagues a little bit. Like a couple teams will try him and he'll get a look somewhere along the way. Hard to see much more than that, but at that level, he's evil. He's a pain. You do not want that dude, on the other side, irritating you on the bases and never striking out and just generally being super annoying.
Yeah, I think we were saying at the game the other day, it's like, if on the Tigers 3-4 years ago, he's coming up. He's coming up and he's Harold Castro.
Yeah.
But with
more base running ability.
It's just there's not really room for him right now. But it's like what he does well, I think will travel. Like it's a short swing. He just kind of peppers the ball around the park. Like there's not hardly any power, but that's not his game. And we've said last year and all this year, he's just a giant pain in the ass in the batter's box. Yeah. He's frustrating as all hell to pitchers, and he's not walking a ton right now, but he's the guy who will force you to throw strikes, through fouling the ball off. Yeah. Yeah. So it's just just another fun guy to have in the system. We've talked about it. He's a winning player last year, and he's a winning player in AAA now. And it's like, well, now what else? Something it would require some sort of bus accident or something like that. But he could come up and probably help.
God. Let's not do that. Jesus.
Yeah.
And Wilco Hernandez is just doing his thing, solid numbers. You still want to see some more strikeouts from him, but nevertheless, for his first year in AAA, he's adjusting pretty well, and he's been most consistent starter as of late. And then
nice thing is he's getting whiffs on his changeup. I think his changeup and his slider are both in the mid 30% range. With, it's not a particularly good sinker really, but if I don't know. I still wonder about Wilco. He seems like a guy who probably should be a reliever, throwing more secondary pitches than anything at the major league level. But in a pinch, you could use him for sure. And who's going to doubt the Fetter magic?
Yeah, I'm not sure. No one's going to doubt that because it's just sometimes they take that little bit of lab work and then just make it maybe adding fairy dust or something. I don't know, but it works every time. So
yeah, I mean it tells me something that he was a minor league free agent and they let him go and then they signed him back like immediately. Like they like something there, even if it's just the fact that they thought he could do what he's doing right now, would be like a stabilizing force in AAA. I assume if he came up to the big leagues, he'd probably get pummeled, but you never know. And he's a guy that he's been a workhorse ever since he went out down with TJ. It's been like 4 or 5 years now, just consistently eating innings, and he doesn't walk a ton of people. So, we know they love that. So again, in the event of a horrific bus accident, or sightseeing helicopter crash. Yes. Something awful. Maybe he could come up and help. Other than that, the Tigers are too good for that right now, but we'll see.
Yeah. A devastating case of food poisoning or something. Yeah.
There, Legionnaire's disease.
Gout run rampant in the club.
Yeah.
Legionnaire's disease. Jeez, oh Pete.
It's a breakout of the Coxsackie virus.
Or something like in Stand By Me, where everybody just starts randomly puking everywhere.
Yeah, complete and total bufferama.
Yeah, bufferama. Yeah.
Or scurvy because you didn't eat enough blueberries.
Or oranges for that matter. Yeah. Let's not take up any more medieval diseases when it comes to this. So, moving on to Erie. And Erie, I mentioned earlier, has the best bullpen all AA. They're tied first because the best starting rotation in AA or in Eastern League, I'm not sure if they have it in all AA, belongs to the Akron Rubber Ducks, and they continue to win. And so Cleveland, again, another Cleveland thing going on there. So as far as the starting pitching this week went, I know Melton had a oof there, but bullpen's getting it done. They're getting Dylan Smith is continuing to improve, just showing the bullpen role is right for him. Even Campos a little bit slow week. By the way, as far as Theron goes, the Tigers are just sitting him out for precautionary measures. Why, to what extent, I don't know. But from my understanding, there's nothing really to worry about at this point. So just people were asking about that, and Tigers are very tight-lipped about their medicals, and so
they sure are. Kevin McGonigal just emerged out of the mist. I'm back.
Yeah. I did. I don't know if I don't want not to go back too far. If we touched on Hao Yuli a little bit, but up in AAA, just you mentioned just kind of the concerns there. It was a really rough week for him. So it was like he had like 7 hits, but it was 1 walk and 10 strikeouts, and he just looks kind of lost to me, like a guy who is particularly with like in any situation when there's runners on and it's a key situation, he just goes into full 100% swing mode. It doesn't matter where the ball is, he's swinging at it, and it's just not working out well for him. And it's been a really rough transition to AAA, and concerning with some of the underlying metrics, right? With inability to hit fastballs, and seems to have been spilling over into his defensive play. I think Colin mentioned his arm looked really concerning. What we've seen from him is plenty of arm strength, but the accuracy is not there.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's, that Willie Castro
works out the same way. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, I did not to revert back to that. I just wanted to touch on that. But yeah.
He is young. Just to just to put it out there. I mean, I didn't expect him to just take it by storm anyway. So
Yeah,
we'll see.
but yeah, and with Erie, it is annoying that Akron keeps winning. Just like Roger's saying, they're very much a Cleveland team.
Yeah.
Both teams 21-12, and they just can't gain any ground. And they were up. They had 4 games to 1, and then the final game of the week, they lost 3-2, I think, on Sunday. I'm trying to remember what happened in that game, but yeah, they played a solid week. Altoona doesn't have a whole lot of talent, and so it's good to beat up on those teams when you can.
Yeah.
But you saw Campos finally had kind of his rough week where the strikeouts piled up on him, but he's still putting together really good at bats for the most part. Like it's not like 3-pitch strikeout. He's some of those a decent amount of those are looking like he's putting together long at bats, almost to the point where sometimes it feels like he's trying to walk rather than trying to do damage on the ball. But
yeah,
I don't know. I still am pretty pleased with the progress we've seen from him this year.
Yeah, and it just seemed like maybe they pressed a little bit on Sunday. Yeah. I mean, they had plenty of guys on base, but it just always seemed to be with 2 outs, or they just couldn't get a run hit and couldn't get a hit when they needed it. But not necessarily a terrible day at the plate. I think they had 8 hits, 4 walks. You should score more than 2 runs, probably. But
yeah. Well, and that's one of the weird things. I put it there is that the kind of the career arc for Jake Holton has been interesting because he was always a guy who could hit a little bit and would work counts and get on base a lot. And he seems to have kind of abandoned that in an attempt to hit for more power, which was kind of like, that was the one thing that, like, if you're going to be a first baseman, you have to hit for more power. And he's doing that, but the strikeout rate has exploded. He used to be like a 12% walk, 19% strikeout. Now he's like 9% walk, 33% strikeout. But his isolated power is like 360.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, all right. Well, you take some good, take some bad.
It's like we're getting a visual representation of like of the narrow path for a first baseman. Like a bat first player. Like there's just so much pressure on him to do damage to try to break through. And so far he's doing a lot of damage. He's handling it okay.
Yeah, it's
but he has been there a long time. He has been at that level quite a while, so he should do damage, just like Trey Cruz. I had a lot of people asking me about Trey Cruz, like, is this finally a breakout? And it's like, I think Trey Cruz is almost 27, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean,
he's been there for 3 or 4 years. It feels like
it's just another. I like what Colin said. Actually, he just said Jake Holton's another version of Josh Lester. That's a good way to put it.
Well, I used to compare Chris Myers to Josh Lester because they're both lefty. But yeah, it's the same idea, right? Like, he made the big leagues one day for somebody, but the Tigers seem perfectly content to just park 8 dudes in Erie forever.
Yep.
And I don't know what we talked about it before. Like they're all these kind of quad A players in AAA rather than promoting guys from within. That just seems to be their modus operandi.
Yeah.
So who knows if any of these guys will ever get promoted? Like, I didn't see Mendoza being the first one to get promoted.
Yeah,
so who knows?
I thought Cruz would be one because, based off the fact that he's been there for quite a long time, coming off Tommy John, and it's just a matter of time, depending on what right now I know Dunn retired.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It is. I think you're right, Chris, but I also think what it is too for them is I think they want to keep Erie as much in winning as much as possible, because if it's just overall, Double A's it's the last level before you go to the Major League Ball and start adjusting and everything. And so I think there's something to that too, especially with the way they're managing the bullpen down there too. They're like, you've seen Sanchez now pitch better this week, which was a good thing to see. And Jaden Ham, same thing. Like his strikeout numbers are good, and I thought he had a good bounce back week. And so I think the reason why you want to stack the veteran bats down there is to keep the pitchers keep developing. You know what I mean? That is what I mean by that is if you have a veteran offensive team, it's easier to focus on the other stuff too. At least in my opinion,
those guys are going to play defense and make the right call on a throw, all that kind of stuff. So, and I think it kind of gives you like a secondary stash place, because all those guys could be, at the AAA level as like emergency call-ups for, half the teams in the league maybe, but the Tigers would rather have those guys at Erie and keep kind of sliding through guys with a little bit more toolsy potential and see if they can, crack something open with Jones or, Brewer Hicklin or something like that, where they actually become semi-useful, but are a little bit more like, available to just call up and plug in somewhere and be okay for a day or two.
Yeah.
And I assume that at a certain point they'll cycle some of those guys out. Maybe the Erie guys will eventually get a shot, but especially to start the season, the Tigers are very concerned with having depth at every position, building that in from the start. And we've had, I've had a few people like, why do the Tigers treat their, the Erie guys like this? And it's like, well, they're just not that good, dude. They're not going to be major league players really, or at least not for any length of time. So, it just kind of is what it is. If you want to play ball and, be like a solid professional ball player who's having a good time and can handle that level and be a good performer, okay. And, if you really want to try to, make some last ditch to be a, some kind of breakout candidate, you might have to go elsewhere because the Tigers are not going to, not going to push you up there. There's no room up anymore.
Yeah. And, you mentioned when you're talking about Ham and in that game, it was a weird one because it was raining for most of the game and at least most of the first 4 or 5 innings. And it was like the one you talked about, I think in Harrisburg, Raj, where like it felt like they should have stopped it before they,
Yeah.
and then they did stop it when it wasn't raining as hard. But like Ham had to come out and they had to clean out his cleats from the mud that was getting stuck in there. And he got 2 huge double plays. And they were both really nicely turned by, one of them was Cruz at third base, and one of them was Anderson, and I think Penny was playing shortstop. So yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point that they want guys there who are going to catch the ball and guys that can do some things on offense to help support the pitchers. That is the most talented rotation, although it's kind of a little banged up right now with Miller out. But we were assuming that he's going to come back relatively soon. I don't know.
Yeah,
and good week for Jim Jarvis for sure.
Yeah. Saw Max Anderson make a couple nice plays over that week too. A couple plays like going behind second base and turning and throwing. There was one in particular that was really nice. So, looking a little rangier this year, I would say, maybe just a little bit, and obviously hitting well, which is the most important thing for him. But
yeah, I mean, like it's so weird. Like I said, watching him evolve like that, Max Anderson continuing to evolve defensively it's a plus too, because again, we just thought he was a man with no position at all. And the thing too that somebody mentioned in the chat, that so fans love having players around apparently in Erie, and I guess with Gage Workman being designated for assignment, so we'll see what might happen here again. Where as far as like if Gage Workman comes back, if the Tigers take him back, they would have to take it back at $50,000, right? Is that what it is?
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that being said, if he does come back, then Colin was saying Trey Cruz and Andrew Navigado. I don't see Navigado going back to Erie. There's nothing for him to prove in Erie anymore. He was at Erie like 3 or 4 years. He was an Erie soldier for a while. So, as James would say,
yeah. If that happened, he's got to get out of here. Yeah. If it comes to that, I'd say
Yeah, I mean, I think. There's nothing for a lot of people to prove in Erie anymore. It would be just like, we don't particularly think you're a big leaguer, Andrew, and so this is where you fit now. Or you could release somebody. I don't know. There were still some of those veteran bats there in Toledo that they could get rid of, but I don't know. Again, we've talked about that Workman, the strike stuff is not exactly their style.
Yeah.
Despite everything else that he does well. So who knows? They may try to work out a deal somewhere, or may take him back and just kind of boot him around the system.
No, that's fair, Colin. No, Bigby went down to Erie, but I mean, Navigado served his time longer than Bigby did in Erie. So Jarvis had a 4-hit game. Was it Sunday or Saturday?
That's Saturday, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, Saturday had a 4-hit game. I really like Jarvis a lot too. He has good arm range, and just he's trying to hit the breaking balls a little better. But he's been a really pleasant surprise too, as well for the Seawolves. But either way, they still have one of the best records in the Eastern League, and they're continuing that run differential game that the Tigers are playing. So,
and to hit that other other question, I mean, I assume between Melton and Ham, Melton is the one who's going to end up in Toledo relatively soon, but he needs to take one little step. Ham needs time at the AA level. He just got there. Melton was there pretty much all last year, right? Maybe
Yeah.
all of last year. So yeah,
Yeah.
Melton's the one who's got to just tighten his command up a little bit. And I mean, it's not like he got just like rocked, the other day, but it was just, kind of wasting pitches, getting ahead, nibbling at guys, and then giving up a single, a double here, a walk there. It was just a really sloppy inning. And then, once you hit that 34 pitches, they're just going to pull the plug on you. So who knows? Maybe he would have settled in, but it was not a very impressive outing. I'll say that much. I was excited for that one. I was tuned in, locked on that one. It did not go well.
And Melton is almost 2 years older than Ham. I think we kind of forget that Ham is still relatively young, even though he was a college pitcher.
Yeah.
He's 22 and a half or whatever, and Melton's closing in on 25 later this year.
Yeah.
Melton got a late start, right? He was a catcher, converted, all that stuff, and it kind of changed who he was as a pitcher in his final year in college. But
radically,
he would be the guy I assume would come up. I still, Raj and I were talking about this the other day. We're still kind of unsure about the roles for all these guys in Erie. I think Miller and Burhan are probably relievers if they get to the big league level. And I'm still kind of 50-50 with Ham. I think Melton can be a starter, just based on, he throws a lot of strikes. He's got the arsenal. He got the stamina and stuff like that. But, the results haven't really been there in the minors consistently. So you do worry. And as I think we talked about it before, right? He struggles against left-handed batters too.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, he's so far this year, he just hasn't given up any home runs. Like the strikeout to walk ratio is fine. It's like 3-1, and I think he's striking out 26 or 25%. But mostly he just hasn't given up home runs, and that will probably start happening if he doesn't sharpen things up a little bit. Although last year was just kind of ridiculously elevated too. Like there's some middle ground in there, but it wouldn't surprise at all if Melton ended up in the Tigers bullpen, down the stretch if they needed him, and he started, kind of dialing it in. Whether or not that would end his chances of being a long-term starter, I don't know. But he's a guy that you can just turn loose with that fastball, and the breaking ball, and kind of just let him eat right-handers alive for the most part if he's commanding everything. Yeah, so that might be something to look forward to later.
Oh, I know Hinch is a big fan of him. I know Hinch really wants him up here at some points too.
And I like him, but I also haven't seen. I've kind of maybe been his biggest booster, but I haven't really seen a whole lot of growth like the last 2 months of baseball going back to last year, and he was a little banged up last year as well late in the year. But he's just in that place that like Herder and Madden and some of those guys have been, where something's got to improve noticeably. There's got to be one kind of thing that clicks to get him to the next level.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean they don't necessarily care, like you said. If you're saying if he's a weapon and he's going to dominate right-handed batters, they'll use him as such, right? They'll put him in positions in the big leagues to pitch in that role, and then try to work on whatever else later. Brent Herder was not a guy who was dominating right-handed hitters in AAA by any means, but they're like, we'll figure it out. And they largely have. It's he's still kind of susceptible to right-handed hitters, but and I think Madden was kind of the opposite last year, and Madden's another guy that I think he's down in Lakeland, kind of doing live BP and stuff like that. He's another guy who could come up eventually. There's another guy whose role we're not really sure about down the road, but they do have some reinforcements coming eventually.
Yeah, and as we saw last year, they can use, even if those guys aren't ready to start in the major leagues, they can use them creatively once through the order, maybe a little bit more, and kind of pad them around them with the bullpen. And they can get away with that because they can go down, they can send Chase Lee down and bring Tyler Owens back, or they can send this guy down and maybe eventually Foley's back. Maybe they eventually call up Dylan Smith, who's been pretty dominant looking, whatever it is, Yosber. Someone like that, but they're in a position where they can kind of cycle through those guys, because the rotation and the bullpen being at least 7 deep now with Maeda gone really kind of opens things up for them to kind of be as flexible as they need to be.
Yeah, they also got Ellis Lang at some point too. I mean,
Foley exists somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere.
Tyler Madison exists somewhere. Yeah. The dream of Freddie Pacheco.
He's returned.
Somewhere out there.
I think is he pitching FSL? Is that what it
was? He was in the complex league.
Yeah.
Okay. So there we go. He's back.
Or you just put Sawyer Gibson Long in the bullpen,
Yeah.
We got a lot of backup. Maybe Urquidy in the bullpen. But like, I'm not feeling too bad about any of these options with Federer and Lund there. So there's a lot of options.
Yeah, the bullpen, like I mentioned before, the bullpen, and this is another the idea of Freddie Pacheco, Colin, is very interesting to me, especially his fastball and slider combo. But we'll have to see what version we get of him. A very impressive series win for the Whitecaps over Lansing, as Chris mentioned earlier. Gage Jump is probably one of the best pitchers I've seen all season, and they gained a game. They're up now 2 games for first place, and they have the best record in the Midwest League. And this is a staff too, where on paper you look at the starting staff, and we were talking about this beginning of the year. Like, we thought that, here we were thinking Gleyber, Reyes was going to be up here, and Rainer Castillo, there were going to be these 2 aces. Instead, the bullpen has been the star. The bullpen has been very good. Jordan Marks is becoming like a different pitcher. I mean, this guy's been the K per 9, as Chris mentioned here, 13.5. Yeah. The control problems of the past, whatever it was last year, are gone. He looks like just a beast out of there. Between him and Howery is like kind of the setup and closer role they've had, and along with Kenny Sora, the knuckleballer. But Chris here with the Andrew Sears psycho comment. The goggles, and look, the goggles emphasize that a little bit, don't you think? A little bit, because when he has the goggles on, he looks like it's like that. What was it? Jim Carrey in Cable Guy, when he was like,
playing racquetball.
Yeah, kind of like intensity to him, but he's been a beast too. But the bullpen has been real. I cannot emphasize enough. Like, it shows the ERA too. It's like not even close. Like the teams in the Midwest League.
Yeah, with Sears, we talked about him at the very beginning of the year. I kind of made everybody watch his outing because I thought he was interesting, and he's had a couple complete disasters. Right, his disaster when we went out to see him, it was a blow up, and he's had another one. But he came out in that first game that week. I think it was Tuesday. It was like he was on like 50 grams of speed or something like that. He was getting the ball and throwing it within like 2 seconds every time. He was working faster than I've ever seen anybody work.
Yeah,
and he bites the air before he pitches. He's like, and then he just leans back and throws. He looks like a psycho on the mound. Like, if he goes farther, the pitching ninja is going to find him and like have a field day with him because it's his antics on the mound. Like, he's not like, Mark the Bird Fidrich or anything like that, but there's some weird things going on there. He was outstanding on Tuesday night. Was 14 up, 14 down before he walked somebody, and then got a strikeout to end the outing. And then he was solid again yesterday. Was it yesterday? Yeah. Really impressive performance from him, and it's fun to see. But like you said, to your point, like the big 3 in the bullpen right now. You mentioned Marks, you mentioned Howie, who actually got touched up for the first time, but Ashman continues to be unhittable. Like, nobody can see it. And it's just fascinating to me because it's 91, 93.
I know, and you're just looking at it like, I'm used to being able to pick up kind of what it is, and I don't. I mean, you can, the arm angle and the delivery, a little bit, but it's not to play the way it is, because it just looks like everyone is just chasing ghosts. It's really odd to watch. So I don't know it's hard to predict if it'll continue, but
Colin with a good comp here of Andrew Sears next to Oliver Perez. That's a good comp.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Yeah, Oliver Perez was, when he was young, he was
filthy.
Yeah. The other thing about Sears is that he just doesn't stop moving. I mean, he was off balance. He was all over the place, and he was still throwing darts. It was pretty wild to watch.
Yeah, he's a guy that I think we saw him.
Nestor Cortez in there, but on tons of gas station amphetamines or something.
Bath salts.
Oh yeah. Speaking of that, here's an example of what we're talking about. The intensity here.
No, that's when he saunters off the mound.
Yeah, saunters. Yeah,
little look there.
No, I wish you could. Like, he's just. That's
him down. Like, what's up? Yeah, that's right. You got nothing. He did straight. Yeah, I forgot he did scream. He screamed after that strikeout too. Call there.
Absolute character.
But so that's fun, and the rest, like, Marcano wasn't particularly. He's just Marcano, right? Like, he goes out there and throws sinkers, and sometimes he has an outing where suddenly, like, he's got a good slider and a good changeup, and most of the time it's just pitch to contact. And Castillo seems to have taken a step back this year. I'm kind of, I don't really know what's going on with him.
Does he have a unicorn hat? I don't know. Maybe he does.
But was there somebody at the Tigers game with a unicorn hat?
apparently Andrew Sears might be wearing a unicorn hat.
Oh, all right. Well, whatever works.
Oh, go back to what Charles here said for a second. By the way, you can super chat us too if you want to support the site. Send us a couple extra bucks because YouTube doesn't pay us jack squat. By all means, and it's true they don't pay us jack squat. Not that much anyway. Yeah, feel free to super chat us. Harris has acquired a swing and miss closer. You can't rely on Lang or Foley to regain form. I would do that to a certain extent. I would just have to see what you have. I mean, you have Vest right now. The Vest. The rest of the bullpen right now has kind of been a hodgepodge, and I think Hinch doesn't like, he doesn't like titles, and so I think the way they're doing it now is playing the hot potato, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I do think that they will probably want to get some more bullpen reinforcements down the line, and ideally maybe that swing and miss flamethrower or whatever. But I also think that what we learned last year is they're comfortable with just about anybody, and they'll put them in leverage if they have to. Like, it wouldn't shock me if we get like 8 Bailey Horn saves in August and September. Like, oh, he's just a lefty throwing 96, 97 and throwing tons of strikes and you're breaking off a nasty cutter or whatever. And good luck. Yeah. Like, they seem to know what they're doing. Like, I guess that's kind of my overarching hypothesis now is like things seem to be going well because they have an idea of what they're doing.
I felt so smart during the Alavila years. And now more and more, I'm like, when I'm running counter to what the Tigers are doing, I'm kind of like, you're probably missing something. Yeah, I mean, and you don't know. I mean, it's a long season. It may just come from within. Like we said, like maybe Melton goes to the bullpen. Maybe Yosber or Dylan Smith, just tightens it up just a little bit more, and they're the ones who are in the bullpen getting a lot of whiffs, But it is hard not to start thinking about, I mean, we were talking about it with Halverson, like to start like thinking about what final killer piece do we need, to turn this thing into a true juggernaut, and trade Jace Young for something and whatever.
Yeah,
but it's still a ways to go.
He's making it awfully hard.
Yeah,
for them to do that.
By the way, Charles, thank you so much for the $10 for the super chat. You get two. You get one of these.
Exquisite.
And you get this.
Off the Frickers building.
Since I played that too. So
thanks, Charles.
There was an off the Frickers building this week too.
Yeah.
Oh, Bruce, Deadly Ninja.
I do like what Colin said here. He said Hinch is going to start giving LinkedIn titles to the bullpen. Will Vest, director of bullpen operations. But I do like what Joey here with that's a good one here. This one said, if it wasn't for the Cardinals' recent winning streak, which just came out of nowhere, I would have done whatever it takes to get Ryan Hensley. That would have been would have been good there.
Can Brant Herter be director of Oak Studies?
Stu Gotts, I would have said that last year, but I will say this. Harris is a man of his word. When he says he's going to do something, he's going to do it. And this year, when he talked to us, I think at the end of the year, press conference, he said he was going to trade a prospect at some point if they have to. So I think they're more likely, they might this year, more so than before in the past. Last year, I would have probably said no. But in this case, I think they might, if they have the opportunity to do so, because they have a logjam right now. Like I said, when you have Verling and Meadows and Perez coming back, well, you got to put some of these guys somewhere. I mean,
and you've got Young, and then you've got Lee, and all these guys sort of fit.
Anderson.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, there is a point where you want to keep depth, but then there's also the point where you don't want to just like have a bunch of guys who have value in trade all sitting there together. But they're going to wait and see what they really need. I mean, we might have it, knock on wood and whatever, but they're going to have probably injury issues that are going to change the equation more so than like, yes, what final genius evil piece can we get to complete the roster? We'll see.
Yeah, but you know what? Here's the thing that's different here's the thing that's going to be different before we move on to Lakeland. That the Tigers, this current playoff run is different than the one in 2014, 2015. And I'll tell you why. Simply this. One, Tigers have prospects and depth to trade from. Because when you had to con Dave Dombrowski to basically con you out of a deal. Simple as that. I mean, Dombrowski was just like, look, I'm going to give you this pile of crap for your two guys.
This is my top prospect. And nowadays we'd be like, yeah, but that guy's like ranked 210th in baseball.
Yeah. Here's Jake Thompson. Here's Jake Thompson for you. What? Or, you know what I mean? Like, he would have to swindle guys. In this case, the Tigers, for the first time, probably since even I would dare I say the Howard Johnson trade in 1984 in the winter of 84. I'm going back here with this, but
Yeah.
the Tigers had, well, they thought they had at the time, like position of strength with training Hojo for a starter because they had Brookins and they thought that they would get somebody to come up and play third. Well, they were wrong. But anyway, it doesn't matter. The point is that this during the Dombrowski or during the playoff era, I mean, you can argue the Tigers had to be creative with these trades. Now it's like they have a luxury of depth to go, okay, we can trade this guy if we have to make a trade. They can do that and still not completely 100% wipe out the farm system. That's what I'm trying to say.
Oh,
But
yeah.
That's where the Tigers are at right now. For the first time, I think in my adult life, I've witnessed this. But Dave Dombrowski could, like with the Tommy Boy joke said, he could sell a ketchup popsicle to a woman in white gloves.
No, I don't think I've ever seen a Tigers team that has like speed, power, this much discipline, like this much like situational awareness at the plate. I mean, it would be nice. It'd be nice to have a star. Yeah, maybe, and the '84 team certainly, like kind of had everything going on, but all those teams from 2011 to 2014 were kind of excruciating to watch until they hit one out of the park. This is a whole different ball game. Like to just see them just absolutely run the table on so many teams so far and score, put up 8 runs. I think in something like almost 40% of their games from late. I mean, it's just been outrageous, and there's just so many different ways they can do it. So yeah, it feels like we're in unfamiliar territory here. I've never seen the team run this well either. No offense to Leland or even Sparky, but AJ and Harris, Fetter, Lund. This is a very, very special group of dudes who know the game very well and are freaking killing it. And we can enjoy.
Speaking of running, somebody stole 2 bases this week. Mr. Max Clark.
Oh yeah, I know.
Yeah.
As soon as that got brought up, yeah, I know.
He also hit a homer and a pair of doubles.
And the homer was to right field.
Yeah,
and it was only 1 walk and 1 strikeout. He was swinging the bat. And
shout out to Max Clark, listener.
Yeah, shout out to Max Clark.
Continues to make quality contact, and that's all I'm asking for is just a little bit more extra base power and run a little bit more because he's got the ability.
Yep. Max Clark sat down that night and he thought to himself, you know what? I don't like seeing Chris Brown distressed.
Yeah.
These sons of bitches.
Or
son
that.
of a bitch.
More likely that.
But yeah, it was, and he was excited. We'll talk about something in the next segment, but he was excited for that and retweeted it. That was cool. And Briseño continues to do his thing. He's still swinging and missing or striking out a little bit more than I expected, but he's putting the ball in play with a lot of force, generally speaking. And I don't know. I think he's probably one of those guys who's going to take off here pretty soon if he continues to get playing time.
By the way,
he's also looking better behind the plate. If you go back to the beginning of last year to where he is now, it's worlds different to me. So
I do find it interesting the way they're doing it. It seems like he catches Joe Miller every time, which I think is probably because Joe Miller has the best command of any of that staff, and it's like you don't want to have him catch Surwa. Or Sears really, because Sears will go wild at times, and so I think they're kind of trying to make him the assignment a little easier on him. But he seems to be calling good games. I'm sure that's in conjunction with the rest of the staff down there. And his arm is fine, like it's not a Lorenzo cannon. But yeah, so like if he's a guy who can continue up the ladder and play catcher twice a week and play first base and DH, that's another pretty damn valuable player.
That'll work. That'll work. And you know what? He did a Q&A. Yeah, to be fair, that's right about Max Clark. He did a Q&A on X. And Charles, I hope that the Tigers are not the Orioles and hang on the prospects too long. If they're like Baltimore, we have troubles. But there's Max Clark. By the way, this is a stat that came up yesterday from Cy Job at Tigers Lab on Twitter. He has the best walk strikeout ratio in the Midwest League since 2021, 1.56. That will do just fine.
Yes, it will. It's great. Except, can you read some of the other names on that list?
Oh yeah. Sure. Yeah, definitely. This is where, I'm glad you said something. Javier Vaz, no idea who that guy is. Shane McGuire from Oakland. Yo Hendrick Penango,
yeah, I think so.
Jose De Paula,
He's a prospect. He's good.
Cooper Ingle from Cleveland. Carlos Mendoza. There you go. 2022. Austin Gunner. Kyle DeBarge, not to be confused with the band. DeBarge. And Juan Brito.
Yeah, allow me to just suggest that minor league records are mostly curiosities for fun.
Yeah.
Because I mean like one of those dudes might have been 28.
And again,
they're all. But he was actually Jose De La Paula is the youngest one on that list.
Yeah, and he's good. Yeah,
he's doing that this year, I think.
Last year he did that last year.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, he's on the Dodgers. I think he might still be there, but no. And I don't mean, again, I'm not trying to paint it badly. I just think that Max Clark has proven to be good enough to not be affected by high A pitching, and he's not crushing the ball. He's putting the ball in a play, and it's not always hard, but he's not expanding. He's hitting all types of pitching. It's he's probably ready to go up. I don't know if they're just waiting for McGonigal to get back so they can push him, or who knows what they're really.
Maybe they need somebody to drive with.
They road trip together. But I agree. Max looks totally in control of what he's doing.
Yeah, and so it doesn't surprise me that he's walking a ton, because he can just sit up there and put the bat on anything. And he's not a guy who expands a lot, so it's a nice mix there. I still think that I think he's probably getting close to being a plus hitter. If not, that was kind of the book on him coming out, and I thought it was last year. I was like, I don't know, this is more like average maybe. But I think he's really developing into a very good hitter, and with those on base skills, he's going to be a fine leadoff man if he continues like this. So good development.
You think about it this way, but Hall is still with Great Lakes. Thank you, Jake. So he's still in high A. Here's the imagine the Whitecaps are 21-12. This is without McGonigal. So think about that for a second. Yeah. Imagine this lineup with McGonigal. They would probably maybe be. You look at probably I'm not trying to be boasters here, but maybe 24-8 right now. Maybe.
Yeah. And if this were another era, Bryce Rayner would be there too.
Yeah.
And that would just be a lineup.
Yeah.
Let's not avoid the Bryce Rayner highlight show, because this, ladies and gentlemen, what I witnessed the other day. So Chris and I were in the booth. So let me paint the scenario for you. So I'm chilling in the booth. Let's see here. I'm chilling in the booth Saturday.
The press box, yeah.
Press box. Sorry, press box, I should say. I'm chilling in the press box, and I hear Chris just go, "Ooh!" I'm like, "What was that?" and he's like, "Check this out." And so, and so I was like, I watched this play. Let me just try to set this up here. And I did have it set up, and also my computer.
We're watching the Tigers game. We're also trying to we're writing a little bit, watching the minor leagues, keeping an eye on everything, and
without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, this is what made Chris just go, "Ooh, yeah." Oops. Should do that? Let me do that in blue. Let me blow that up.
Just a freaking clothesline, man.
Yeah, it's
looking like Manny Machado back there.
I have an arm of lightning.
Yeah. No, Bryce Rayner, we hear things, right? You see, he was a pitcher, he's up to the mid 90s, and he's got a 70 grade arm, and then you see it and you go, yep, that'll do.
Yeah.
Somebody thought that we sped it up. and then
the trajectory should tell you that it was not sped up.
And props to Christian Santana, who barely has ever played first base with that stretch.
Yeah.
But I think it was Scott Bentley who just said the F word. He's just like, holy F. That's all he said was like.
Well, and we talked about it right after that. Patrick Lee made a throw that may have been even harder.
Yeah.
But it was like his hit bounced off the troposphere and bounced into space. It was ridiculous. But yeah,
it was an Ichiro, powered throw, but he had a running start, of course. To see Rayner go into the hole like that and turn and uncork that goddamn throw was impressive for sure.
Yeah, that's the sort of arm that lets you play shortstop even if you don't have good range, and he does have pretty good range. So you see him going to the hole, right? There's the noise.
Yeah.
So yeah, he could play anywhere on the field. Third base would be no issue. Yeah, so that was this, pretty fun to see. And of course, like that was the same game that McGonigal came back,
Yep.
and it was he was Kevin McGonigal. He's played 2 games this year. He I think it was a ground out in his first at bat, and then he worked a 4-pitch walk, and then he crushed an opposite field double. It's like, all right, well, it's Kevin McGonigal. He seems fine.
Yeah, I mean, I had people asking, like, isn't it, it's just kind of a drag, that he's not going to be able to keep up with Max, and, Clark should probably be up at Erie. And it's like, dude, you could drop Kevin McGonigal in Erie right now. It's just not going to be a problem for very long. He'll adapt really quickly. So, it just depends on what they want to do, and, making sure he's healthy, and probably like giving him some days off a little bit for a while just to make sure he's 100% good to go. But I have no concerns about Kevin McGonigal.
Yeah.
No. As we recall, in spring training when he hit a bomb off Aaron Nola.
Yeah.
It's spring training. It doesn't matter. But McGonigal is a guy that you could drop him in Erie, you could drop him in Toledo, you could probably drop him in Detroit, and he would survive and eventually thrive.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, it was kind of like like when Bresino homered off of Andrew Painter's fastball last year in the AFL, where you just see some certain things with McGonigal where you're like, bro is good. He's just so good.
Yeah, and
as we said, and we pointed out, Max Clark was very enthusiastic to see his boy back.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he retweeted it and said, "We are so back." The things that people love to do. So, and that's one of the great, most endearing things about Max Clark, right? Is he's just a massive baseball fan that just watches it constantly,
rooting on the Tigers every night on X. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and then there's Renner can hit a little bit too. That was 110.9.
Yeah.
Not to mention, this was the first hit where there was not a jackass and the outfield played it badly, blah 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 blah. No, he hit it out. Just
It was a freaking missile. Yeah.
Statcast had it at 370 feet, and I'm like, that's not right, because the wall is 400. So I went and looked at other, in the Statcast era, balls hit that hard at that trajectory, and they're generally between 420 and 440 feet. So wow. I mean, it was a line drive.
The distances are estimated, so there's probably more possibility for borking of the data, but the velo reading off the bat and the trajectory usually seems to be very sound. So
and he also had did he have a double in that game?
Yeah,
and
that was his fourth multi-hit game. That was his fourth multi-hit game in 5 games.
And the most impressive batted ball in that game may have been the foul he hit. I don't know if you could pull that up, Raj.
Which one?
I thought he had a foul. He fouled a ball. It was like the 9th inning, and we put a clip together of all his hits in that game. I don't know if you'll be able to find it, but one of the things we talked about is him not pulling the ball much, and he got up 3-0 and let it eat, and he hit the ball 410 feet foul. He hit it to like the Pittsburgh clubhouse. It was absurd. The announcer was like, "Oh my god!" It was like, "Okay, man, he can pull it too.
He can turn, man."
Yeah, it was. And that almost was like it's like advanced, right? Where he's happy to hit the ball very hard the opposite way, but he knows like when to kind of unleash and
and it's good. I mean, Miguel Cabrera totally oriented, to right center, but then could pull it whenever he needed to, and that's all you need to see. I don't need to see him like trying to yank the ball, because we have seen him hit it out to left plenty too, and to center. So, but yeah, you just want to know that he can, and that he's going to be able to handle inside stuff when they start trying to jam him, backdoor him, and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, and that was another one, that double he hit right there. People were complaining like, oh, the fielder misplayed it. It was like he hit it to the base of the wall. What?
Yeah,
like 2 seconds. I don't know what.
Yeah, we're not impressed that it's a double. We're impressed with the the quality of contact is what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
So this is every pitch you saw. This was that's the home run. Yeah, and there are things he's gonna get challenged with. We've talked about it since we saw him, right? Like that approach. We don't know how he's gonna handle consistent in velocity inside or breaking balls under his hand or whatever. But like he's, for the most part, he's controlling the zone. There's 3 walks, 3 strikeouts this week with all that power and that defense. It's like, man, it's hard not to get super excited.
Yeah, he can only hit the pitching that he's facing, and he's absolutely smoking the baseball.
Yeah, and that's off a lefty, right? And that's just a beautiful piece of hitting, and it hit very hard. And so here's this is fly out.
Yeah,
but so it's this final at bat where he gets up 3-0, You see that? And he just he uncorks it right here. This pitch.
Oh,
Good Lord.
Yeah. It.
that
Yeah.
looked a little bit like Colt Keith's shot in
Yeah.
Colorado. Yeah, that was just the old. Okay, I'm going to open up wide and swing the hammer here. Yeah.
So Deadly Ninja Beast, is this the most excited you've been about a prospect? You know, maybe, I don't know. We were pretty excited about Riley Green,
Yeah.
and we've been pretty, Colt Keith, we were pretty excited about Kevin McGonigal. Rayner, I think, does have, if he reaches that like 95th percentile, it's like game over, right? Like it's like an 8-9 win player.
Yeah, I mean, everybody else had something that like Colt Keith was not going to be a very skilled defender, and he was going to have to play on the right side of the infield. Torkelson was a first baseman. Riley Green, we kind of knew from the beginning, like, yeah, he's got good instincts and he can play center field, but he's not a speed guy. It's probably not going to last there. Everybody had like something you can concern yourself with, whereas Bryce Rayner, it's just like, oh man, this is the super tools god of our dreams, really, right here.
Yeah,
and he's played 19 games, but in 19 games he's been as impressive as I've ever seen any prospect be.
Yeah, especially a Tiger, especially outside McGonigal infield wise. I mean, McGonigal actually, like, we've witnessed in the last 5 years. Here's the thing. Here's the sad thing, folks, for people who've watched prospects and all this. And if as long as I've been paying attention to this, which has been pretty much since the late 80s, as a kid, as I've gotten older and I understand baseball better, I have never seen not two in the span of 5 years in the Tiger impressive hitters as McGonigal.
Yeah,
at three technically, because Keith, I remember Keith too.
Yeah.
But like 3 in a span of 5 years. Like that to me is like a Haley's Comet for me, because we grew up watching a lot of crappy prospects, and I'm sorry, it's true. Like I remember getting excited for Gabe Alvarez back in 1997 in high school. I'm like, yes, Tigers have a third baseman, yes, and he had this big series against the Cardinals, and it was all pumped. And I remember telling Gabe this story that I saw him live at the Tiger Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't pan out, but it's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, Gabe, a great manager, also a good collector of Nike shoes. Just ask Greg about that. But it's just right now, like we're living.
It's a golden age right now.
It's a golden age. It really is a golden age. Considering where we were, I think about this. I was thinking about this. Somebody mentioned 2019, and I think it was Jed UK or something like that. And I was thinking about the prospects in 2019. I mean, here we are, Cole Peterson. We're talking about like we're making
80 grade glove.
Yeah, chicken shit out of chicken salad. No offense to those guys again. No offense. Yeah. But here we are, and we get this is like.
It's. Yeah, like, the question for me on Rayner will be, is he going to be like a 240, 250 hitter, or is he going to be like a 280, 300 hitter? And, either way, he's going to hit probably for power and play great defense. And, he might, steal you some bases too. So it's super exciting. Not everything was great down in Lakeland. As you see, my Montilla sad face, just when I was like, hey, he's not getting enough attention.
Yep.
Just a brutal week. It wasn't even like, I don't know. It just was like, if he didn't have bad luck, he wouldn't have any luck at all. Like he put the ball in play and it's right at somebody for a double play. And it was like, oh, poor Montilla. So yeah, that was a bummer. Who was, Patrick Lee. Yeah. We talked about his rocket from the outfield. He's still showing all the tools there. They still batting him like 8th or 9th. I don't know how they actually think, how they feel about Patrick Lee, but he does an awful lot of things well. I don't know.
Yeah. The tools are so big. You'd think they'd be, more interested. I don't know. I mean, there's not that much of a chance that he ever turns into a major league hitter, but if he does in any capacity, even as a lefty masher, he could be a really, pretty impressive piece. So I don't know. They don't seem to care that much yet, but maybe
I think they keep him as an org soldier for now because of the backup of guys in West Michigan. And I mean, I knew when we talked to him, I could tell he was, from what we heard, he was disappointed being down in Lakeland, but I still think he has the ability to. You can see him at Erie at the end of the year again. That's what I think. I really believe that he might just skip West Michigan because right now it depends on what they do in the outfield. But I don't know. I still have faith in him. What I don't have faith in right now is just when I saw that Minton did not start, I was kind of concerned because Paul Wilson's out for the year. Owen Hall 7-day IL, so you're like crap.
Yeah.
Crap.
Swanson gone for the year right before we even got to see him. Yeah.
Yeah, they've had really, really bad luck with these high school pitchers that they've taken. I don't know if that's just a rough string, or if they need to re-examine how they're doing things, or maybe they just don't. They aren't as terribly worried about medicals, and they just want the arms. But it's been Dunford and who else? Yeah, but in any event, yeah. I mean, we're hoping that because Wilson was originally a 7-day IL trip, and we're like, hopefully it's just a blister.
Mm-hmm,
And so we're hoping the same for Owen Hall, because that would be a real bummer, their second round pick. But on the other side, Sawyer Gibson-Long came back and looked like Sawyer Gibson-Long. He threw all his pitches.
Yep.
His fastball was right around the velocity it was before. It's going to take him a while to build back up in game action, but very nice to see him back on the mound after I think close to 400 days.
Good call there. Stu Gotts forgot about Dickerson's out for the year too.
Yeah,
Blake Dickerson.
Another positive though, I thought is still Josh Randall to me. I'm kind of getting into Randall, so
yeah, good call.
He's been pretty solid. Has a lot of potential with the slider, good fastball.
Yeah, the Statcast was wonky on him the other day. I was talking to that was Saturday night, and I'm like, he threw a pitch 3,500 RPM. I don't think so. And then he had like a 500 RPM fastball and then a 3,000 RPM fastball. I'm like, which clown is running this thing? But he does have a very high spin breaking ball. It's like 2,800 plus and mid 90s velocity. So that's definitely an arm you can work with.
Yep.
So Complex League is underway. So this is the first time we've gone to our fifth slide, if you will. Mm-hmm. And you can find, by the way, if you are a Patreon member, paid version of this, you can get the slides afterwards after we put them on the broadcast. I originally put some video form, but they were like, "Oh no, just put them on stat sheets like that." So I'm a man of the people. So Jude Warwick, by the way, is there's been a lot of people asking about Jude Warwick, Chris. We've been noticing the upward trend with this.
That may be my fault for mentioning it much, but it's just fun having young high school infielders who look like they can hang there, and it's he's in a Complex League for a reason. He was a 12th round pick, but there's some stuff there to like. I like his swing, I like his speed, I like his defensive ability. It's again, just going to come down to his how well he hits as he advances through the system. But that's another really fun team down there in the Complex League. Jimenez, I thought would be on Lakeland this year just because he was decent, and he's tearing it up right now.
It doesn't seem too long in the making. Like he should be moving over there fairly soon, you'd think.
Yeah, a couple of home runs, he's hitting the snot out of the ball, and Jose Dixon is like, people are talking about him in the chat like that. He was the big name. Mm-hmm. That we were, he was mentioned by Baseball America. He was a DSL All-Star last year, and we've seen a lot of guys perform in the DSL and then come here and struggle. But yeah, this is a pretty loud first week for Jose Dixon. Like, he didn't hit any home runs in the DSL, and he second game here, only triples later. He's playing second base and shortstop. I don't know about like his ultimate speed. And maybe he will be more of a second baseman or whatever, but it looks like, you could have another kind of Montilla on your hands here, and maybe, who knows, better.
Yeah, maybe more. Yep.
So, yeah, and they've got some fun arms down there. We've talked about it. Salcedo throws very hard. Scheffelbein is another high school guy that hopefully he can stay healthy. Jank Diaz came back, and he had a really rough, like, first 3 or 4 batters, and then just settled in and struck out a bunch of guys. And that's exciting. Alistair Tanner is, I think he's the youngest pitcher on the team, an 18-year-old Australian, and somebody sent us a message, right, Raj?
Yeah, it was his uncle, I believe. Yeah, it was his uncle.
And he was actually started in that game. Unfortunately, the camera there in the FCL Phillies complex just had a lot of artifacting going on, and I recorded it all, but I just couldn't turn it into anything useful, which is a bummer. But hopefully we get to see him a little bit later.
Yeah, there's not a lot of Australian baseball video out there, unfortunately, so I was trying to scrap the internet for that. But Freddie Pacheco, that's all I know is that Freddie Pacheco is on the comeback trail. And,
please, Freddie.
Yeah, well, we too, I agree with you. The Tigers do need some more third basemen. First baseman, I think that'll be fine. That's just the thing that will happen organically. So
Yeah, we'll see if Rucker can kind of start to right ship as he gets more reps and stuff, since he missed so much time last year. But that's been rough so far.
Yeah, it's weird because you watch him and he doesn't look that overmatched.
Yeah,
But he then is like, it's like 2-3 strikeouts every game. You're like, what? I don't know. It feels like he's gets kind of caught in between everything, and you hope that something's going to click for him at some point. But it wouldn't be the worst thing for him if he went back to the FCL for a little bit. We talked about that last week, but
yeah,
try to get still
momentum. Yeah,
it also wouldn't be the worst thing for him if he go out and has a 550, 600 OPS all season, and then heads back to the low A next year. And we sometimes underestimate the amount of time it takes for guys to figure things out, and just always go back and think of Parker Meadows.
Yeah, and the value of actually failing and not being in that sort of mid ground where it's like, well, you're doing all right, and the players thinking, well, I'm doing okay. Yeah, sometimes it's better to be a little, if things are more cut and dried, to get a guy to make a change or to do some extra work or whatever. Not that Rucker's not doing the work or anything along those lines, but just yeah, you can fool yourself when you're kind of like contributing to the team and being good, and lose sight of what you actually need to do to get better enough, to get to the major league.
So, by the way, who has power at first base? I mean, Briseño could be there. It could be a man.
Lorenzo could be there.
Yeah, it could be a bunch of guys there at that position.
We talk about Briseño, making progress at catcher, but I still think his ultimate position, at least the majority of the time, is going to be first base. Just because, he's a good enough hitter with enough power that he can make that work.
And it just seems like he'd be stalled. He'd have to. It would just take so long to make him a good catcher. Even if he can get there, that you just figure the bat's going to outpace that.
And it's also, we just remember that he's 20. He's still only 20. So.
I know it's true. And all these guys are really young. I mean, McGonigal's really young. Yeah. Clark is young, and I'm already greedily looking forward to late 26, early 27, because it just feels like there's going to be a storm of good dudes rolling in here.
Yeah. There's another draft coming up too. I mean, the draft is not too far away, and so I'll be interested to see what happens.
Two picks in the top 35.
Yeah.
They're also they're going to bring Gibson Long up, and then they're going to flip Jack Flaherty at the deadline to the the Mets for their top prospect.
There we go.
Who knows what madness?
Jet Williams.
Yeah.
It is kind of thinking, looking at Pete Crow Armstrong now and thinking that the Cubs got him for half a season or 2 months of Javi Baez.
Yep. Pretty wild.
Yeah. Anyway, that's right. It's a PC. They call him PCA now, whatever.
Yeah.
But we too. That's a good point too. Maybe try Rayner at third at some point. We'll see.
No, you don't need to try him at third because he'd be just fine at third. It's mostly like if he can play shortstop, play shortstop. That's the more valuable defensive position. It may be down the road. Maybe it will be. Maybe it'll be Rayner at third, McGonigal short.
If you want to see Mantilla at shortstop, then you can play Rayner at third a little bit.
Yeah.
Just to keep that floating in case you want to trade Mantilla as some kind of I don't know, some kind of deal. But
we didn't really mention Max Anderson. I think Brandon mentioned him briefly, but he keeps hitting.
It still looks. I don't know, but he's getting the job. I can't argue with it.
Yeah. Like I said, you're watching his fielding; it's getting better. So
yeah, he is looking better defensively. Yeah, for sure.
So thanks so much for watching us this evening, whether you're listening at home, online, wherever you listen to the podcast. And of course, like and subscribe our YouTube channel, Tiger Minor Report. Please subscribe to our Patreon. There's a free tier and there's a paid tier. All the money goes back into the website, so that way we can go on trips and stuff like that and just go check out the minor leagues. Also, don't forget to check out all the great content over at blessyouboys.com. The guys have been cranking out stuff over there. Props to you guys for, like I said, just be able to stick with it right now and not stick to going to clickbait like much some other sites are doing.
Awful lot of interest in the Tigers these days.
Yeah.
It's pretty fun for people who've been covering this team for the last 6-7 years during the dregs. It's nice to have people interested and have everybody as excited as we are.
Yeah. I mean, we waited a long time to get to this level, and I mean, I hope people, most of the people who listen to this or watch this have a pretty good impression of the Tigers farm system on their own. But I mean, the team is set up to be good for a pretty long time. That doesn't guarantee you any championships. The tournament is its own thing, but it's pretty hard not to look at this and feel really good about where the Tigers are at for, the foreseeable future, at least the next 5 to 7, 8 years, something like that.
Yeah.
So
We're looking at probably the best run of Tiger prospects we've ever seen.
don't screw it up, Harris.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that note. So, like I said, we'll be back Thursday for Motor City Metrics, and then, like I said, if you want to go to one of our websites, TigerMLReport.com, or go to both websites because both our content is very truly unique. And stay classy, everybody. We'll talk to you later. Have a good night, everybody.
Night, guys.